Welcome to the Into His Eyes podcast, a podcast about life, its ups and downs, and looking daily into God's eyes, our hand in His. Welcome to the Into His Eyes podcast.
Okay, so this is the sixth time that I have started this recording and then stopped this recording. And what we're going to talk about today may be a perfect example of why this has happened. You know, usually what I do is I turn it on and I just go and rock and roll and don't stop and start and stop and start and say, well, that didn't sound good, or something technical happened. Usually everything runs pretty smooth. But this is my sixth time started this episode number 9. And yes, so what we're going to talk about may play exactly into it, or it may not. I don't know. But you'll see as we get started here. Thanks for listening. One of the things that I appreciate so much is anybody taking the time to listen. I was asked this weekend by somebody that said, what do you enjoy about doing the podcast? What do you get out of it? And I think it's a couple things. Number one is I love to read. I love to take notes. I love to learn. And then when I do that and there's something interesting that I think will benefit me, I just naturally want to share it with others. I think that's important to be able to share those things. Also, I think technology is super cool. I think it's amazing that I can be here in my office and, turn this on and record it, and it may help somebody, and it may play in different countries or different places. And that's important to me as well. And I think that's super, super cool. So, what I wanted to communicate today and why I think it's so interesting that this is, like I said, the sixth time, and usually it's not too much resistance to get these out, is I want to communicate to you that I feel we need to be aware of the possibility of Satan working in our life. And for some of you, when I say that, it's like, oh my gosh, like what's he talking about? That's a little, heavy or ridiculous, or Satan really working in our life. But I want to read scripture. It talks about in 1 Peter 5:8-9, it says, be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of sufferings. So I want us to think about that. I want us to kind of think in our mind when we say something like that, to be aware of Satan, to be aware of the enemy. Why do we sometimes think it's foolish? Why do we sometimes think that it's not real? Why do we sometimes think that it's not really happening, or he's not really working? I just want maybe to process that a little bit and think about that. Do you think that that's something that he would want? When you ignore your enemy, usually your enemy will win. And one of the things I think that Satan would really want is for us to not be aware of his workings. You can't fight a battle in which you don't know the enemy. You're not going to win it. You're not going to win a battle that you don't know even exists. It's not going to happen. And I feel so much in our life that we forget these different things or these thoughts that come in that are not good in our life, that may be Satan, and they're just kind of working his way, however he works. And that's the mystery of this whole thing. And I think that's the interesting craziness, the ups and down beauty of life, that all these things that we really don't understand, but we need to be aware of, that they may be happening. These thoughts that come in our mind that sometimes we go with, and what these thoughts may be, where you're driving, you're on your commute, and you may be thinking that, as a man, you're not enough, or, I hate my job. I'm never going to have a job that I like, or, something's going on in your marriage and you think, well, it's never going to be worked out. And, maybe I should just give up and move on. It could be some hardship, as a parent, whatever it may be, these things that, I'm not a good parent. My kids never listen to me. I just don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I just need to, whatever it might be, these things that kind of defeat us and these things that bring us down. I feel that Satan gets in there and continues and continues and continues to work. And like I said, if we're not aware that may be him in his working and these things aren't truth, that things can get better, will get better, that you are enough, that you are a good man, that you are a good woman, that yes, you have your faults and you have your different things that you need to work. But so much of what we do, that negative talk that comes in our mind, we take it as truth, and we take it as that is who we are and what it is. And I think we do ourselves an incredible disservice. I think the enemy wins way too much, right? Because he is not being thought of like I think he should be thought of. Not being aware of. And I know this in my life. There's conversations that I had, internal conversations. There's been conversations that I've had with my spouse and different things where I'm like, gosh, what's going on here? Where you walk away and you're like, man, that was odd. That was weird. I don't think that. Or why did that happen? Or how did that conversation take that turn? And sometimes, yes, it is our own fault. We're flawed individuals. But sometimes we need to be aware of, okay, what's going on here? Is that Satan? No, Satan, that's not truth. That's not what's really going on. And instead of not being aware of it, bringing Christ into it, say, Christ, come with me. You're with me. You're right here. I love this quote from Oswald Chambers. It says, sometimes there's nothing to obey. The only thing to do is to maintain a vital connection with Jesus Christ, to see that nothing interferes with that. I want to read that again because I think that's incredible. It says, sometimes there's nothing to obey. The only thing to do is to maintain a vital connection with Jesus Christ, to see that nothing interferes with that. And that's Oswald Chambers. And sometimes I think that's so important, is to understand in these hard times, in these conversations, in these thoughts that are going through in our mind that may not be the best, right, is to invite Jesus Christ into them. Invite him into the hard conversations, whether that's, external with your spouse or your kids or a coworker. Invite Jesus into it. Whether you're sitting alone, in your office, in your car, wherever it may be, on a walk, and these thoughts are bombarding that are not good, invite Jesus Christ into those conversations and be aware of see, if we don't have Jesus Christ close, if we don't have that close connection, who can move right in there? Satan can move right in. And I think sometimes in our lives, we need to be aware much more of his workings in it. And I think it's important. But this day and age and how everything is, we're not aware. I mean, my gosh, our attention span with social media and everything like that is so short, is so quick. I think Satan, I think he loves it. We're so distracted, and we're just not aware of the enemy. And like I said, when you ignore the enemy, or not even aware that you even have an enemy, that you don't know there's a fight going on, then that enemy usually can win. So just be aware of it. Understand that. So think about that in your life. I want to end too on a maybe a more positive note, whatever it might be. And 2024 is coming up. And one of the things that we talked about was as a family having a word of the year. And I think it's incredibly important. We have a family text thread that we communicate with each other quite often with. It's great to see that, because my wife and I's 3 older boys are out of the home. They're all being men and going out and living their life. And we have a daughter here that's in high school that's we're almost empty nesters, and we have her in the home, and that's so much fun. I love my girls so much. It's such a blessing. And we communicate in this WhatsApp. And one of the things that we talked about as a family was coming up, bringing up or deciding on a word for 2024, kind of a word that anchors you, right? We have one like peace, genuine, kindness is a word. Dad got 2 words. Dad got discipline, execution. And I think I talked about this is really making sure that I execute, be disciplined on the things that I say that I'm going to do. And discipline, execution, the definition of that is getting important things done. And what I say that I'm going to do, like, for example, doing this podcast today, I said I was going to do this, and I want to be disciplined and execute getting the podcast done. It's cool that it's my initials too, DE. But I want to encourage you to come up with a word as well for 2024, a word that anchors you, a word that when Satan is working, when you feel this kind of turmoil or whatever it may be in your life, that you have that word that you can go to. And you can Google search, strong words or words of the year, and it's going to give you some great words, and you can go off of that. But I want to encourage you to do that. I think that's going to be important, I think, for us as a family to do that together. And maybe you can do that with your family, or just come up with your own word to really live by. So think about that. So I want to end there. Thank you so much for listening to this. This has been a challenging one because I think the enemy was working a little bit. Understand that when you do try to do something good, when you do try to put something positive out there, the enemy is at work, and there is going to be a little bit of resistance. And how much of that is the enemy? And I think that's what we do sometimes. We think, well, that's just life, right? And that's just how, it is when you try to do something, there is going to be that resistance, and that's not really Satan. And to a certain extent, yeah, maybe not. But you never know, right? So be aware of it. And that's what we talked about. He is prowling around like a lion, ready to devour, and that is truth, right? So if we're going to believe the Bible, and we're going to understand the Bible, and understand that that Satan is at work there, so just be aware of it. Be aware of it. In those conversations that you have internally, ask yourself, okay, what's really going on? Satan, I'm not going to let you, and I'm going to invite Jesus Christ in this conversation. He's with me. He's truth, and that's what I'm going to go for. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Into His Eyes podcast. Feel free to follow Damon on all social media sites and contact him directly at damon@damoneddy.com. Thank you for listening to the Into His Eyes podcast.